Hello everyone, and welcome to the College Football Betting Pick Show for Saturday, December 12th, 2020. My name is Dylan Burd, here once again on the Sports Bird podcast, and we actually have a pretty awful slate that we're going through today. I mean, I've gone through the slate week after week, trying to find bets, and this week, I think, tops it all for the worst week we've had of college football this week. Week before conference championship week, so it's kind of the calm before the storm. But I do have 3 picks for you all today. I have 2 spread picks and 1 over-under pick. Last week, I went 3-1 on spread picks. I hit Indiana plus 14. I hit Texas A&M, which was a late ad after the show on Saturday morning. I also hit Clemson at night against Virginia Tech, and I lost the Mormons against Coastal Carolina. That was a brutal game to watch for BYU, just poorly coached game. So unfortunate loss there, but we did go 3-1, so good week overall. Now, before we get started here today, just wanted to remind you to be following me on Twitter at sports_bird. That's where I will add picks right before the game last minute. So before the noon slate, before the 3:30 slate, before the night slate, I will be updating my picks on Twitter. So be sure to be following me there. In addition, this is a new YouTube channel, just founded it this fall. I do my college football picks every single Friday. This video, I also do a waiver wire show every Tuesday, so if you're new to the channel, that's what I do. I also have a NFL prop video over on Sal Vetri's YouTube channel. The link is in the description below. The new one for Week 14 came out today, so if you're into NFL player props, be sure to check that link in the description below. It's good stuff. I love doing it each week, and I'm getting a ton of new Twitter followers, a ton of people ask me for props. It's just been an absolute great time, and you fans, the ones who watch, the one who love these videos, they are the ones who make this great. So thank you to everyone who's been watching all these videos. And in addition, before we get started, also just wanted to say, like this video and be sure to subscribe to this YouTube channel. It would really help out a lot. And also be sure to subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, and even be sure to leave a rating or review while you're there on Apple. That would really help me out as well. Now let's get started. So for our first game that we're going to look at this week, we head to Beaver Stadium in State College, Pennsylvania, my alma mater, where we look at Penn State versus Michigan State. The over-under in this game being 47. So Penn State and Michigan State, a battle between two 2-win teams this year. Two teams that also aren't high-scoring offensively at all. Michigan State ranks dead last in the Big Ten in scoring at 17 points per game, and Penn State is not much higher, ranking 10th in the Big Ten, averaging just 24.7 points per game. And if you look at Penn State's last 2 games, they beat Rutgers last week 23-7, and then before that, in their first win of the season, they beat Michigan 27-17. Now, if you are not too familiar with Penn State and their program, I am obviously because I went there. Penn State's new offensive coordinator for the season, Kirk Soraka, his offense is based mostly off time of possession, like very heavily off time of possession. That's something that he cares about a lot. Him and the Penn State offense rank 4th in the Big Ten in average time of possession per game. And in addition, Penn State also has the most rushing attempts in the Big Ten, 309 through 7 games. They run it 44 times per game approximately, which ranks 2nd in the Big Ten behind Ohio State. They had 57 runs last week against Rutgers, 50 the week before against Michigan. Now, I expect Penn State to be up in this game. They are favored by 14.5 against Michigan State, so I expect them to be the ones to control the pace, to run the ball a lot, run the clock. This is not an offense that's built to score a ton of points, not an offense that's built to completely blow teams out. I think that it is a very similar game to their 23-7 win against Rutgers, and I think that they'll run the ball a ton, run the clock. Michigan State's not going to score a lot against this Penn State defense, and as a result, this game, Penn State versus Michigan State, will go under 47 points in this game. The second game that we are going to talk about today, we now have a spread pick, number 21 Colorado, home versus the Utah Utes. So this is the first Pac-12 game that I am betting this year. I have strayed away from the Pac-12 because they were just starting up their season really late, and I honestly was just a little bit too unsure about what was going to happen at the beginning. Wanted to wait and see a little bit. Well, now we've waited a couple weeks, and we are finally betting the Pac-12. Colorado comes in at a quiet 4-0. They just moved up to 21 in the rankings this week. Utah is 1-2 on the season. Now, the Buffaloes, Colorado, they've won different types of football games this year, and that's what's impressed me when doing my research on them this week. They won 2 shootouts to start the season, 48-42 over UCLA, and then 35-32 on the road at Stanford. Then they won 2 defensive battles, 20-10 over San Diego State and 24-13 over Arizona. So this team has been solid on both sides of the football. They are averaging 432 yards of offense per per game. They're also averaging 31.8 points per game, led by quarterback Sam Neuer, who's been really, really solid for the Buffaloes this year. And on defense, they're only allowing 24.3 points per game. Now, looking at Utah, the defense to Utah is very similar to Colorado's, only averaging 27 points per game, but the offense has not been that great. They're only averaging 363 yards per game and 22.7 points per game. 22.7 points per game, obviously not good at all for college football. Now, former South Carolina quarterback Jake Bentley is the quarterback of Utah. He has not been that good this year. Utah lost to USC 33-17, and then 24-21 they lost against Washington. They just got their first win, beating Oregon State 30-24 in their last game. They are nowhere near the same as last year. They lost quarterback Tyler Huntley. They made the Pac-12 championship game last year against Oregon. This team is not anywhere near what they were last year. Also, one more aspect to this game that I was looking into. The game starts at noon Eastern time, which means that it starts at 10 a.m. in Colorado. So that's going to be a rough time for Utah, who had to travel to Colorado here on Friday. And then, I know it's not that far of a travel, but they still have to travel to Colorado, then wake up really early for the game. So they're going to be pretty tired. I think that's an advantage for the home team for Colorado. But other than that, I really do just think that Colorado is the better team offensively, the better team defensively. And as a result, I'm taking Colorado at home, minus 2.5. in this game. For our third game that we're going to talk about today, we have another Pac-12 battle. Number 15 USC at UCLA. USC favored by 2.5 in this game. Now, when I say USC is playing at UCLA, obviously not that far to travel. They are playing at the Rose Bowl. USC comes into this game 4-0. They're in a tough battle for that South Division in the Pac-12 with Colorado. Both teams are undefeated right now. Now, USC had a few scares early in its schedule. They only beat Arizona State by 1, and that was by basically pulling a miracle in the last few minutes of the game. Arizona, they only beat by 4, but then they've settled in the last two games. They beat Utah handedly, 33-7, and then they beat Washington State 38-13. So not very good teams there, but to see USC handling them well is a great sign for the Trojans. Now, USC is led by quarterback Keaton Slovis, who was considered to be a Heisman candidate before everything got switched up with the schedule. Like, when the schedule was supposed to be normal, Slovis was considered a Heisman candidate before all this happened. Now, he threw 5 touchdowns last week in his best game of the season, and this offense as a whole is averaging 424.5 yards per game, 33.3 points offensively per game. In addition, UCLA comes into this game at 3-2, so they're a pretty solid team also. They have losses to Colorado and Oregon, two pretty solid teams, and they are led by quarterback Dorian Thompson-Robinson, really good mobile quarterback, and UCLA's offense has been explosive as a result. They're averaging 430.6 yards of offense per game and 32.6 points per game. In terms of UCLA's defense, they are a little bit worse than USC on a points per game basis, on a yards allowed per game basis, but they did let up 48 points to Colorado, and they let up 38 points to Oregon. So I'm a little bit worried to see what is going to happen when UCLA goes and plays a team with a quarterback like Keaton Slovis. What's going to happen? Is the same thing that happened against Colorado and Oregon, both teams that have competent, good offenses, is the same exact thing going to happen against USC? And I'm afraid that I think it will. I think Keaton Slovis is going to have a big day. USC needs this win in order to stay undefeated. You can't be relying on Colorado to start losing games. This is a must-win in a small, tightened schedule, and I think Slovis has a big day against this UCLA defense, and I think USC covers 2.5 in this game at the Rose Bowl. Now, if I'm looking at these games and ranking them based on which ones I'm most confident in, I'm tied for most confident in the first and second one of my bets. So Penn State, Michigan State under, and Colorado minus 2.5 versus Utah. The USC-UCLA game, that's just below that. So I would say that if you're just looking for one or two to bet, either choose between Penn State, Michigan State under, or Colorado minus 2.5. Now, just remember to be sure to be following me on Twitter at sports_Burd, because I will be updating my picks as the day goes on. I'll likely be adding games. Look, this is not a great schedule and not a great slate. It's the calm before the storm, right before conference championship week, but still going to be watching, still going to be betting, so be sure to be following me on Twitter at sports_Burd. Also, if you haven't already, be sure to like this video and subscribe to this channel. It really helps me out a lot. Also, be sure to check out the link in the description for my NFL player prop show over on Sal Vetri's YouTube channel that just got released today for Week 14 in the NFL. And that's a wrap. Goodbye, everyone, and good luck with your college football betting this week.